Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Myers Raymer, and I'm an alcoholic. What a treat. I always love coming out here. You know, I got to let you know a little, it's kind of a fantasy type thing. I always think if I do this talk just perfect, that Pamela Anderson will come out of the audience someplace and beg me to help her through the steps. I don't even know if she needs help through the steps, but it doesn't change the fantasy. And every time I come out here, I keep looking, driving out, I kept saying, that was Clint Eastwood. I think I saw him. It's just like, I don't know. You can always tell a guy from Texas, right? He just gets overwhelmed by Hollywood and stuff, and California in general. I remember being a kid and thinking that we used to always just make jokes of California. I'd never been to California, but we just say things that weren't kind. And as I got older, I ended up coming out here one time to do an AA deal, and I remember just going, holy cow! I understand now why they live here. I mean, it's just. I don't know of a state that blows me away more today than California does. It's just every time you make a turn in the road, there's something else cool to look at and some other nice person to talk to. It's just a cool deal. It is. I thought I was having an LSD flashback. I wasn't going to say a word. Because if you didn't see him, we were going to be in real trouble up here. Oh, no. God. I feel much better. Thank you. My home group's the Primary Purpose Group in Dallas, Texas. It's just a big old bunch of lathered up big book thumpers, and they saved my life, and I'm so grateful to be a part of them. And what an honor it is to be here. I got a chance to meet a bunch of you cats today, and Bill that brought me from the airport, and then I got to see Billy last night talk, and I'm so honored to hear that. And let me tell you something really weird, guys. This is the first conference I've ever been to where I think the Al-Anons dang near outnumber the AA guys. And I got to tell you, I'm digging the heck out of it. AA is cool, and I love it to death, and it saved me, but I guarantee you, Al-Anon saved my marriage and saved my family and all the other stuff that went along with it, and I'm always got this kind of soft spot in my heart. I remember my sponsor's wife, who would later become my Al-Anon sponsor, she would, every time I would call Cliff Bishop, the guy that sponsored me for all those years, I'd call him and she'd go, oh, you don't need to talk to Clifford about that. Let me help you with that. And you know, it's the truth. It's the truth. All the stuff that she helped me with, it just, you gals and guys are great. I'm glad you're here with us. How many of you guys, shoot, I got to do this guy thing. I always get in trouble on this thing. Listen, south of the Mason-Dixon, remember the line that runs down there through the south? Okay, south of the Mason-Dixon, people say y'all, okay? You get that, right? No, I don't have to. In Texas, we say you guys. It is not offensive. I'm not trying to exclude women. I'm married. I have 3 daughters. I love them to death. You'll never, ever, ever on the face of this earth meet a more woman-centered kind of guy than I am, okay? I dig women. Well, we'll shake it out in therapy later. But listen, what I'm trying to get you to understand is if I say you guys, I mean you all. Okay, seriously, because man, I'm gonna tell you something. It's been a bloodbath after a couple of these talks over the years, man. Women have jerked me off the podium and beat me up because I'm Scout's honor. I love you to death. Going in. How many of y'all have family members like parents that are alcoholic? I'll let the taping record show. Okay. Of you guys that raised your hand, how many of you said that you would never drink, that you were not going to ever touch any of that nasty stuff? I love it. It's because it's the same worldwide. It's everywhere that you go, you hear the same stuff. I managed to effectively not drink, not even kinda, until my senior year in high school. In my senior year in high school, Pat Robinson picks me up to go to a basketball game. Now, sports in Texas, I don't know what it's like in California, but sports in Texas is religion. I mean, it's like, holy cow. And so it's basketball season. We're going to go to a basketball game and fight at 26 miles down the road. Fredericksburg is down there, and he has a six-pack of beer bouncing around on the back seat of a brand new yellow Camaro. I'm telling you, I'd never even been in a new car. And he pulls up in one, and so we go driving down the road, and we get almost to the stadium, or this gymnasium where they're going to play ball, and he pulls over and he says, "Hey, crack me one of those beers." And so I handed it to him, and he goes, "Well, aren't you going to get one?" And I went, "No, I don't think so." And he goes, "No, I mean, just get one. It won't." And I said, "Well, okay, just one." And so I drink this beer, and we're sitting there like this, listening to some Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young on the radio. And I know I'll explain it later to you young guys, but we drive on to the game. It's just 2 miles, 3 miles down the road. So we pull into this parking lot, and all of a sudden I'm kind of like, there's something different. And I looked at Pat, and I said, "Hey, Pat," we're walking across the parking lot, and I said, "Can I have the keys to your car? I just want to drive back down there and get one more of those beers." And he looking at me like this. He said, "What?" You can hear the band playing inside and stuff. He says, "Man, they're already in there. The game's starting." I said, "I know, Pat, I promise you, man, I'll be right back." He said, "You better not drink all those beers." I said, "I won't." And so I go back down there like this. And I remember sitting on the edge of this concrete embankment over that low water crossing, and we had lowered that beer down into a creek to keep it cold. We didn't want to get in trouble with it. It's November. The clouds are kind of coming up through those cypress trees down there along that river. It's just, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I can feel the moisture hitting my face and kind of little sprinkles. And I'm drinking one of those cold beers, and I'm telling you right now that I drank another one of those cold beers, and I'm just sitting there thinking, holy cow. So this is what the old man was doing. This is what it was about. And I got it. And I went back down to that gymnasium, and I walked in like I owned the place. And I got to tell you, there wasn't a single presentable girl in that whole place that I didn't talk to that night. Because it's a program of honesty, there's not a single one of them talked back, okay? I mean, it didn't. Ugly's still ugly, and you ain't changing that, okay? I mean, I didn't make any progress in that department. But let me tell you something. It was, it's just simply magic. I just wasn't afraid. I just felt normal. I just felt like everybody else, and that's all I really wanted. It didn't turn me into a big old party animal until a little later, but for a while the wheels stayed on that wagon, and it was fun. It was great, and I'm one of these kind of guys that love to drink, and it was fun and games. The problem is, if the consequences hadn't come along, I probably would still be doing that. But then you know how it is. You just can't dodge the consequences for very long, and pretty soon, Chris, the evil twin, has introduced me to the joys of outside issues, which sort of sped things up, if you catch my drift. And it just got real ugly. I mean, you take that and mix it with that, and pretty soon it's just like wheels off. I'm afraid of everything. I got a real loud mouth, sober, and you should see me drunk. I mean, you go into a bar, I know I'm going to get hit because I can't keep my mouth shut. Two things happen every time I go into a bar. I talk too loud, and I can't keep my hands off your date. These are character defects that God has thankfully removed, but it's one of those kind of things. Can't you just say hi to a girl without touching her? No. But guys don't like that. And so I was always getting hit. I'm the skinniest, scrawniest guy. I look like a skinned rabbit. Somebody said, "Well, you got tired of drinking, that's the reason you stopped." And I said, "Nah, not exactly. What I got tired of was getting beat up. I got tired of having my face rearranged." It's just ugly. In the end, I don't talk much about this stuff. In the end of this thing, I got arrested twice for trying to hurt people, and I tried to beat up a liquor store clerk one night because he called my house and wanted a good credit card. I thought he was just being sensitive, but I mean, but it made me mad. It made me mad because my wife didn't realize how I'd maxed the credit cards out. She said, "Well, our credit cards are all good," and I went, "They used to be, but they're not now." And so, but it was this kind of stuff. And towards the end of this thing, I just kept getting into trouble. I couldn't go to the grocery store without being drunk. My world had gotten so small. It was my bedroom, my garage, and I could stand to work for 2 or 3 hours a day. My wife is my business partner, and she's always been there to hold things together. And so when I couldn't hold it together anymore, I'd say goodbye, and I'd go home. I mean, and so my world had just gotten real, real small. Chris sobers up in November '87, and Chris is my best drinking buddy. He's working at the bindery where I worked, and he sobers up, and it just. You would think that if your twin brother sobered up, you'd be happy. I wasn't happy, guys. I got to tell you, he's my best drinking buddy, and I'm mad because he sobered up. I don't want it to end. And Chris was the guy, I'd go, if I ever get as bad as Chris, I'll stop. And I bet you got somebody in your life like that too, that you looked at and you went, man, if I ever get that bad, I'm done with this stuff. And so he quits, and so 2 months later, he takes me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. It would take a little coaxing from some legal stuff looming large, but I went, and I fell in love with AA. I've got one sobriety date, January 15th, '88, and I fell in love with AA, and it was the coolest thing I'd ever experienced. And I walk into this long shotgun room. Some of you guys have, I mean, if you've been in Texas, you've seen this room, big pressed tin roof, and everybody's smoking cigarettes. I mean, people are like 6 cigarettes hanging out of their mouth. I mean, I don't even smoke, and I was lighting them up every meeting. Just, like this big old butt cans just flowing over. I mean, we ruined it for everybody. I mean, because we just, halfway through the meeting, you couldn't see the pressed tin roof, You'd stand up, and everybody would walk like this so they didn't stand up in it. I mean, crazy stuff. But it was just for like a year and a half, 2 years, I almost made it 2 years without trying to kill somebody in the meeting. And because, I mean, it's like my recovery looks like this, and this is where your story and my story probably diverge, okay? Or does that mean go away? This is where we separate, okay? I never said I was smart. I just like... So it's like I'm down here in the toilet, and it gets better, and it gets better, and it gets better, and then all of a sudden it just starts really, really slow. It didn't happen overnight. It just starts getting worse and worse and worse. I'm going to a whole bunch of meetings, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. 3 or 4 years into the deal, we had this big group conscience meeting, and we decided, somebody had come in and said that they decided that we were talking about God too much in the meeting, so we voted God out of the meeting. We weren't going to talk about God anymore in AA. So you take this 32 meetings a week, and they're all open discussion meetings, and there's no book studies, and there's nothing. None of us have sponsors. None of us are doing anything else except just sitting there having a high old time. But we're not treating the internal condition, which is alcoholism, and we're all getting real sick. And so you can imagine how crazy this meeting that was already pretty crazy got after we voted God out at that group conscience meeting. And so let me tell you toward the end of this thing, folks, it would be, I would come in, sit at the meeting, light a cigarette, and I would start looking at people, and there was a couple of guys in there that I'd gotten a real red ass about because they said the same thing over and over and over again. And so I went from being this spiritual cool guy when I first sobered up to this guy that would spend the entire meeting trying to figure out how much jail time I'd have to do if I killed him and drug him out behind the meeting hall and buried him. Now listen, normal people don't do that. I don't think. I mean, I'm just like, I'm a nut job trying to figure out what. Some attorney told me one time, said, Myers, I think you could probably get by with it. You don't have any real stuff on your record. You probably could get by with it. And then I'm thinking, okay, all right, this is good. This is working out. This is so crazy. But there's an allegiance. Some of you guys got involved in home groups early on, and maybe you stayed. You ever were a member of a home group that you knew had gone kind of toxic, but you stayed just because there was an allegiance to the group? Some of you have experienced it, some of you haven't. But it's like, man, there was nothing. I mean, they could have been sacrificing cats in the back room, and I was going to stay there. It didn't make any difference. I just wanted to be there with my buddies, and I keep thinking that I know I'm getting sick again. I know that the problem exists. I know that I'm not doing well, but I just don't know what else to do. Every time I mention it, every time I say something in a meeting, well, Myers, you just need to double up on your meetings. Okay. I'm going to 6 already. How many does it take? I mean, where does it, how many? Listen, the only thing that was certain, I don't want to drink, and I know I don't want to drink, because I know if I drink, I'm going to die. I know that the end is there. Chris is now moved to the hill country. The evil twin is now moved to the hill country. He got something called a big book sponsor. I don't know what it is, didn't really care. But what I did know is that every time that he called, he was happy. He was always laughing on the telephone. And I'm thinking, don't know what this is all about. One night, I almost drank. I ended up in a little grocery store, and I had a 6-pack of beer in my hand. I was walking up front, and I had a moment of clarity, and I set it down on a table and walked out the door, but it scared me so badly that I called Chris, and he said, listen, I'm going to be in Dallas with Mark in a couple of days, and we're going to do a talk up there, and there's this old dude that we heard about, and we're going to go see him while we're there, and if he's everything that we think he is, you got to go see this cat. And I said, I'll do whatever it takes. A couple of days later, he calls me and he said, hey, you're not going to believe these guys. This guy's old as dirt, and he's really, really smart, and hey, buddy, he's going to hook you up. And here it is. I went, God, Chris, man, I'm just so busy here. I got so much stuff I need to do like this. And Chris is like, it's like dead air on the other end of the phone. And finally I said, Chris, you there? And he goes, let me see if I got this right. 2 days ago, you called me and you were suicidal again and almost drunk again, and you're telling me you don't have time to go see this old dude? And I went, well, you tell me we don't have some egos that rekindle, guys. I mean, tell me. It's just crazy. So I go see this old dude, and I open the door. Some of you heard me tell this story before, but I got to tell you, I wasn't expecting old. I mean, I was expecting old, but not old. I mean, Clifford was old as dirt. I mean, he was just standing there. He was standing in the doorway, and he looks at me like this, and he says, where's your big book? And I went, excuse me? And he says, your big book, where is it? And I said, sir, I haven't seen it in a number of years. And he goes like this, and he slapped me in the stomach with his, and he says, don't ever come back over here without it. Use mine. And he turns around and he walks into the living room at his house. Now, guys, listen. I'm thinking, where's the love? I mean, I want him to hug me and tell me that it's all going to be okay and welcome me into his home. That's what I want him to do. And that ain't what's happening, man. I'm feeling disrespected, and I'm feeling disrespected just thinking about it. That's what I mean. He goes. So I'm at this crossroads, and I'm thinking, where do I go? I can get out of my truck, he'll never catch me. And then I think, nah, dang it, I got to go do this deal. I'm going to go on in. And I walk down there. Elaine Bishop, his wife, would later tell me, before she passed away, she'd tell me that that was the most uncomfortable conversation she'd ever heard. Clifford was just asking me real simple AA 101 questions. Who were the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous? Some old dudes? I don't know. Ask me another one. Go ahead, bring it on. I'm ready. Ask me another one. And he asked me like 10 questions in a row, and I didn't know the answer to any of them. And I finally started just playing games with him. I'd go, well, you know, there are many ways to work the steps. I was just trying to BS him because I didn't want him to think I was stupid. And he finally, he's just looking at me. He says, Myers, there's none of this that you understand, do you? And I said, not really. And he said, how long have you been in the program? And I said, well, I've been sober for 7 years. And he said, no, you haven't. He said, you've been powder dry for 7 years, but you wouldn't know sobriety if it slapped you. And I went, it's going to be like that, is it? I said, you know what, Mr. Bishop, you're right. I don't understand anything that you're talking about. And he says, now we can make a start. I'll see you Thursday night. And I went, okay. And so what happened, I'm real quick with this. I started going to these meetings. There are no discussion meetings. All we had was book studies, and that's what we were doing. Every meeting, twice a week, we were studying the text. Every other night of the week, we're out carrying the message someplace else. I'm not doing that. They can do that, zealots. But I'm gonna study for a while. I don't mind studying. I mean, this will be cool when I go back to my home group like this, and I walk in like I know that stuff. Let me. I had already had it figured out what was going to happen. And what happened was I fell in love with these guys and these gals who were wicked smart, knew what they were doing, but there was something else. When you looked at them, you knew that they were home. You knew that they knew and understood that there was a message there that could affect and change lives forever, and they knew it and I didn't. And so, listen, I remember 3 weeks into the deal, I'm sitting over there on a Thursday night, and I'm sitting there like this, and they're talking about what alcoholism looks like, and they're talking about the doctor's opinion and about the physical allergy, and I'm just going like, holy cow. And I drove home after that thing like this, and I ran through the front door like this, and my wife was sitting there, and I said, Londa, you're not going to believe it. I'm an alcoholic. And she goes, no shit. Just like, I went, no, really, I'm an alcoholic. See, I thought I was an alcoholic because you said I was an alcoholic. I didn't really understand what alcoholism was until those people broke it down right out of the text, and then I began to understand what the lowdown is. Guys, what I found out was our fellowship is full of people that are not alcoholics. It's full of people. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Gee whiz, I don't know why you are, but I mean, well, I mean, come on, stop. How many times do you know people who have been assigned to AA by the court system? You're an alcoholic, you need to go to AA. Well, if you happen to be in an area geographically where there's not a lot of big book studies and nobody shows you what alcoholism is, where do you draw the line? I'm an alcoholic because I got a DWI. Check. You see how crazy that is? Listen, guys, lots and lots of people get DWIs that are not alcoholic. Lots of them. We need to stop trying to connect the drama. This is the reason why I'm not a big fan of discussion meetings where we just talk about our war story stuff back and forth, because of the problems that it causes. Newcomers began to connect the drama with their alcoholism. Okay, I didn't eat out of a dumpster, so I'm good today. I'm not an alcoholic today. You see what I'm saying? We want to just connect it up. And it had nothing to do with that. Otherwise, Bill and them would have written it that way in the text. But they didn't do that, did they? They gave us a clear-cut set of directions that described what alcoholism looks like, and then more importantly, what they did was they described what recovery looks like. Wow. We could actually see what it looks like. And believe me, it's not, we'll get there. I promised I was going to be really nice tonight, and I really meant it too, so. Maybe. Here's where a lot of people's stories and mine differ, because they came and they love AA and they love the meeting and they love just sitting there and the fellowship is great, and I get all that. Listen, this stuff is not lost on me in any form or fashion. I dig that too. But I have to tell you guys, there are a whole lot of us that came and sat in our meetings and got so painfully sick sitting in the meeting that we had no choice but to go die or drink. People say, well, meeting makers make it. And I'm going, listen, some meeting makers do indeed make it. But I can tell you from personal experience that there's a whole lot of us out there that don't make it. Statistically, lots of us don't make it just sitting in the meetings. And this is the reason why it's so imperative. This is the reason why I beat up podiums all over the world talking about this one specific thing. Why can't we all kind of get on the same page? Let me read something to you. You don't even have to reach for your book. Page 17, you've read this in 100 meetings, I hope. If you haven't, page 17, 2/3 of the way down the page, okay? The feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us. But that in itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. The fact that we're joined as alcoholics is indeed important. There's nobody in here doubts that, right? This common nightmare is powerful stuff. But that in itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. And then he continues, the tremendous fact for every one of us is that we've discovered what? A common solution. Okay, why is that important? The text gave us a common solution, and it describes it in great detail. If that's the case, and we were all theoretically on the same page, then sitting in a meeting, why is it that it still happens that we end up with a guy over here who has a sponsor that works him through the work in 30 days, and we have a sponsor over here that works a step a month for a year, and we'll finish you up at the end of the year? You see what I'm saying? That doesn't sound common to me. And yet we see this kind of stuff all the time. Oh, just don't drink and go to meetings. Just come on. You see what I'm saying? Because the fellowship gets divided, and it shouldn't be. Remember unity? I do. this fellowship should not be that diverse in the way that we get people sober, the way that we bring people into this deal. Listen, I understand that I'm not trying to raise up an army of zealots out there whacking people up against the head with a big book and like a bunch of Amazons out there. What I want would be, but why couldn't we be out there with some more zeal than we have now? Why couldn't we be out there with a clear message of recovery that was so precise in the way that we delivered it that people would have an honest chance of getting this deal? There are places in this country, guys, right now where there's some of the craziest crap you've ever seen in your whole life. It may be wonderful and warm and fuzzy where you go to meetings, but what about in Dallas, Texas, where they have groups that are charging money to hear fifth steps? Oh yeah, oh yeah. How about groups where they won't let you bring a big book into the meeting? Stop you in the parking lot. Hey, Slick, what's that? It's my big book. Well, we don't use that here. Let me tell you a story. I got a call from a girl about 3 months ago who's this is up in, I can't say where because they'll come kill me, but it's in Texas. And she said, I'm real distraught because my husband has relapsed and I don't know what to do. And I said, well, tell me what's been going on. And she gave me a little brief rundown. And I said, well, how's he? She said he's been sober now for about 15 days. And I said, well, good. It sounds like he's on track. And she goes, well, not really, because they won't let him back in the AA meeting. And I said, excuse me, say that again. And she said, oh, well, they said that he has to be sober for 30 days before they bring him back into an AA meeting. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, but this happens, and we sit there in our arrogance and say, well, it's warm and fuzzy everywhere because it's warm and fuzzy in my women's meeting on Saturday morning, or my men's stag meeting on Sunday night. You understand? It's not warm and fuzzy out there. There are guys dying everywhere because they can't get a clear-cut message. Listen, how do I know? Because I sponsor, it seems like, all of them. I get... I sponsor, I got a group of guys, these 5 old dudes, and now they're my age or older, okay? The youngest one, sobriety-wise, has got about 21 years, and the oldest one's got right at 30 years, and they go to a different group than I go to, but I've kind of, over the years, I've kind of collected them up from other groups, and we have this deal, and I'm not going to tell you what I call them, but anyway, they're a mess. But these 5 guys collectively have sponsored 5 men. So you've got over 100 years of sobriety that reflected there, and they've sponsored 5 men. One guy hadn't sponsored anybody. And so in our conversations, when I'm asking them questions about this kind of stuff, the reality is they were all real closed mouth in the beginning. They don't want to say anything about why they don't want to sponsor. And the reality is they don't know, because nobody ever told them. Bill Wilson said in the 60s that the primary objective for us as members of Alcoholics Anonymous is an adequate representation of the 12 steps to the newcomer. That's our primary responsibility. I want to read you something. In 1966, Bill Wilson wrote a letter. It's on the internet, and I got it all in an email too, and I'll forward it to you. But listen to this thing and see what you think. Remember now, by 1966, the discussion meeting has reared its head. There's a lot of things going on. In those days, remember, everything is going back through Bill Wilson. Whether a telephone call, there's no email, obviously, but the telephone call and a letter, everything still goes back through Bill. And so Bill's getting real concerned because he's hearing lots and lots and lots and lots of strange stuff. So he writes this letter, and it was reproduced in 2 or 3 different places. An AA group as such cannot take on all the personal problems of its members, let alone those of non-alcoholics in the world around us. The AA group is not, for example, a mediator of domestic relations, nor does it furnish personal financial aid to anyone. I wish I'd read this a few years earlier, but... Now, he clarifies it. Though a member may sometimes be helped in such matters by his friends in AA, the primary responsibility for the solutions of all of his problems of living and growing rests squarely upon the individual himself. Now, should an AA group attempt this sort of help, its effectiveness and energies would be hopelessly dissipated. Now, here it is. This is the part I want you to hear. This is why sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of AA's 12 steps, is the sole purpose of the group. If we don't stick to this cardinal principle, we shall almost certainly collapse. And if we collapse, we cannot help anyone. Our sole responsibility is to carry the 12 steps to the new guy. There's at least 50% of you in here right now that has heard me say that nothing else in AA is important. I'll get the emails, guys. I'm not new to this, okay? I'll get the emails all week because that's what you heard, and I want to make sure you understand. Look at me. I didn't say that. We all get here and we need other things. We need some love, we need some affection, we need some counseling, we need it all. I get that. I just don't understand why it always has to be in the meeting that it's given to us. Why can't it be given before the meeting or after meeting or at coffee or at Denny's or where? Why can't it be there? Why do we have to take up every meeting talking about your problem when we could be sharing the steps and the solution and the love of a gracious God in that meeting? Why can't it be that way? You see? Okay, so look, here's where we run into trouble with it. Listen to this. There was a cat named Bob Bacon, dead now. Was a delegate in Ohio in 1976. In 76, guys, some of you guys weren't even born then. This is what he writes. This is a transcript of a talk that he did. We hear a lot of ridiculous things like there are no musts in AA. Now, my big book read different. People say that it's an individual program and that we can take the steps any way we want to. Dr. Bob said, and I quote, "There is no such thing as an individual interpretation of the 12 steps." There's no such thing as a personal interpretation of the 12 steps. Now then, 2 weeks later, after I first read this like this, this cat sent me this out of the Grapevine Statement of Purpose. I'm not a fan. Thank you. The awareness that every AA member has an individual way of working the program permeates the pages of the Grapevine. And throughout its history, the magazine has been a forum for the varied and often divergent opinions of AAs around the world. I won't read any more of it. So you have a co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous telling us that our primary purpose is to carry this message and that we're not supposed to be interpreting it different ways. And then we have the Grapevine, an outside entity, saying that not only is it okay that it's all different, they're going to report it. And we wonder where all the mixed messages come from. You see? I mean, it's just don't get me started. Listen, one more thing and I'll quit reading. I promise you. This one more, but I want you to hear this. Somebody the other day sent me a copy of a pamphlet. It was a reproduction of a pamphlet from 1983. See, because I wondered where all these ideas got started. I wondered where it came from, because I sobered up in 88 and it was already wheels off and we didn't do anything about it. It's only now, within the last 5 or 10 years, that we're seeing a groundswell of people wanting to move this fellowship back to where it was in the original days when we were batting at least to 50% and some places 90% success rates compared to 5 to 10% worldwide. Thank you very much. You see? You can argue with me all you want to like that, guys, but you can't deny the figures on the stuff, and that's where it becomes problematic. People go, well, I just don't agree with you. Okay. It's okay if you don't agree with me, but you got to pay attention to one thing. If the success rates were what they were then and we're doing what we do now, I'd get off this podium and I'll never get back up there again. There's no reason for me to. You understand? But when success rates worldwide are so bad, I don't understand how we support this. How do we keep propping all this stuff up like we know what we're talking about? We've obviously changed something that was working, and that's what we want to look at. In this brochure, I'm not going to read any. I just want to read you one little thing deal. This was a deal about beginners meetings, and it said that their number one piece here: suggested topics for beginners meetings. How to stay away from one drink one day at a time. I thought God did that. I didn't know we had anything to do with that. Oh, okay, just we'll get into it. I don't want to do this. Yeah, I'll do. I'll just read a couple of them, okay? I'll just read a couple of them. What I want you to do is, what I'm looking for here is conflicts and contrasts between what we're doing today and what they were doing then in the early days. And some of you guys that have been around for 1 billion years, listen up. Listen to this stuff. They've made 11 suggestions. It starts off the 24-hour, 1 minute if necessary plan, where we just don't drink 1 minute at a time. The HALT reminder, never getting too hungry, angry, lonely, tired. We've all heard of that. Sticking close to your sponsor. We heard of that. Now, some of these have a grain of truth to them. I have no problem with some of this. Postponing the drink. Okay. Now, the wheels are kind of coming off this wagon right here, okay? I'm not sure about the postponing the drink thing like that. It didn't work for me. Going to lots of AA meetings, still thing. Keeping pockets stuffed with AA reading material. Okay. Then they interject number 7, prayer. I like this. It's getting back good again. Changing routines, especially at drinking hours. Spending time with other members individually. Spending time in meeting rooms or central offices where AA gather outside of regular meetings. And then the 11th one, they finally said what? Start working the steps. You see what I'm saying? You listen, it's subtle, but I want you to hear it. What they did was they took our program, which was ferocious in nature, okay? Where God was at the center of it and God was going to remove what ailed us, and we turned it into a self-help program, how you can keep yourself sober. If you do these things, you can keep yourself sober, one day at a time. Listen, next time you don't have anything else to do, or maybe next time you want to torment a protege that you're working with, a little sponsee, ask him to go find in the big book where it says that we stay sober one day at a time. It said we live life one day at a time, but early AA literature always talked about quitting for good and for all. Bob was big on this stuff, remember? This idea that we stop drinking one day at a time is, well, I don't know, good luck. You understand what we're saying? When we move this around, go look at the Library of Congress where the big book is. Self-help. Go look at the Hazleton catalogs for books. Where is the big book? Self-help. Folks, AA is not now, nor ever will be, a self-help program. It is not. It's a God-help program. God is unashamedly at the center of this recovery. And we need to move people back to that. An experience with God is so profound that you will recover from this seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. This is how this works. This idea that we're going to turn ourselves into junior therapists and we're going to sit in meetings and fix everybody's problems needs to stop. Please. Please. It's just... Okay. Let me bring you back. Okay, I'm sitting in these meetings for almost 2 years. I'm Cliff Bishop's book boy. I don't want to do that stinking 12-step work, so I'm his book boy. He's old enough that he needs somebody to drive him around. So I drive him around. We go to all these wind-up places like this. I set his books down. He does the meeting. As soon as he's done, I'm up. I got my cell phone. I got his books, and I'm heading outside. And Cliff stays in there for 45 minutes to an hour talking to these guys. And I'm thinking, oh, man, I wish he'd hurry up. Golly, the house is almost on. I just need to get out of there. I'm coming out of my skin being in there because I don't get it. I don't see it. So we're sitting there in the meeting one night, and I said, Clifford, can I talk to you after the meeting? And he said, yeah. And he's just really frustrated with me. You can tell, you ever work with somebody that you're just done with? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And so we go in the back room, and I said, Clifford, can you tell me, I'm just not like y'all still, right? And he goes, that's right. And I said, what do I do? And he goes like this. He takes his glasses off, and he goes, and he looks at the ceiling like this. I've since done it 1,000 times with guys I sponsor, so I recognized it immediately when he did it. And he goes, I've told you, and told you. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you one more time, and then I want you to go away. And I thought, okay, it's Tuesday night. He wants me to go away till Thursday night. And then I went, oh, no, he means go away, go away. He wants me gone. And then I'm thinking, okay, I'm listening. All right, dump it one more time. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. I want you to go to Salvation Army tomorrow night and carry the message. Well, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to carry your books, right? And he goes, no. I want you to be a part of it. Okay. I'm busted. I don't have any defensible position, and so I say, okay, I'll go. He takes me, and I open the door, and there were a bunch of people leaning against the door. They say they weren't listening, but I know what they were doing. Because everybody had a craw full of me. I'm just not in the game. I go out there on Wednesday night, and I'm sitting out in the parking lot. It's hot, and I'm frustrated. Excuse me, and there's nobody else but me. And I realized that I'd been screwed, that they weren't coming. It was just me. And so now I can either leave and risk losing the gig, and I'd never live that down, or I can go in and try to do this deal. Excuse me. So I go in. Clear security, walk around the corner, and when I walked into this room was almost this big. It was not quite as wide as this, but it's every bit as deep as this. There was probably close to 200 black guys in that room and a couple of Latino guys and one little white guy sitting back over here, Salvation Army, and is again a kind of a weird area of town. And I mean, they just pack them in there like cordwood. And I'm thinking, oh, this is just going to be a nightmare. And these guys are back there. They got the hats on backwards like this, and they're leaning up in chairs, and they got sunglasses on. And I'm thinking, oh, man, why me? I don't want to do this. And I'm just so frustrated, and so I don't know what to do. And then I'm thinking, well, shoot, I remember where we were the last time. And so I just opened the book, and I said, guys, we're going to have a meeting. They kind of moved up, and then we just started doing this meeting. And I'm going, God, you've got to help me here. And I get into it. Well, buddy, let me tell you what. Pretty soon, about halfway through the meeting, these guys kept moving up. And toward the end of this thing, we're all laughing and having a good time. And it's like, I don't really know what's happened, but it's special, okay? So we get done with this thing, and we do the Lord's Prayer. And this guy, we let go of his hands, and we're just standing there. I'm going to say this as a caveat. If you've never been in a room like this, a kind of a gym-looking place with 160 black guys saying the Lord's Prayer, do it. It'll be the closest thing to a religious experience you've ever had in your whole life. Those deep baritone voices and all those guys in unison, it was like a choir to me. And the hair stood on my back up on my neck for 2 days. And so as I'm getting ready to leave, this guy says, hey, can you come back tomorrow night? And I went, here it is. I went, shit. See, you got to understand. There's a part of me that wanted to go back, that was excited that they asked me to come back. I'm just going, yes, they want me to come back. And there's another part of me that's just going, dang. I had this worked out. I was going to milk this for years. I'd go, yeah, I carried that message out to Sally. You see, I could just one little act of kindness and 8-9 years of sobriety, but I was just going to milk it forever. So I got to come back. So here's the story. So I get up the next morning, and something's different. I am weirdly rearranged. I can't quite put my finger on it. And I get to work. My wife's going, and she keeps looking at me. And finally, about 10 o'clock, she says, why do you keep looking at the clock? I said, man, I got to go back out to Salvation Army tonight and do another meeting out there. And she said, oh, okay. About 11 o'clock, I'm still looking at the clock like that. She says, why do you keep looking at the clock? And I said, man, I got to have time to get ready and get my notes together, and I'm just going to go. And she goes, okay. And about 1 o'clock, I finally said, I'm out of here. And she said, man, what time is the talk? I said, 8 o'clock. And she said, it's 1 o'clock. I said, I got to go. So I go home. I always worry about telling this part of the story. So I get home, and I'm laying clothes out on the bed. I'm trying to get, I got like 5 suits laid out like this, and took 3 showers. I mean, I know I didn't. I just took 1 shower. But guys, I know something special's getting ready to happen. I just don't know how to dress for it, okay? So I'm living, Salvation Army is in Dallas, Texas. It's July, it's hot, and I have no air conditioning in my 77 Toyota Land Cruiser. And so I get down there about 6. I'm a good 2 hours early, okay? And I'm walking up and down Harry Hines, which is not a real smart thing to do, and mixing it up with the working girls, and just kind of, I'm soaking wet with sweat like this, and finally I just had to beg them to let me in early, and so I walk around. I'm a trained professional now. I know how to get through security, and I get on thing. And when I walked around the corner into this big gym, all of these men stood up. Now, how many of you guys have ever in bar fights? Any of you besides me? It's like there's an appropriate speed to walk up to a man in a bar. And there's an inappropriate speed. And sometimes when somebody walks up to you a little too fast, it's just like, this is not right. And these guys started walking really fast towards me. And I'm thinking, oh, this is great. This is when a white boy gets killed at the Salvation Army. I'm just like, they're going to tear me up. Why? And so they stop about where that line of chairs is. They stop. Most of these guys stop. And one man who was the biggest man I've ever seen in my whole life, his shoulders were about this broad, and his legs were as big around as my waist. And he kept walking, and he walked right up to me. And when he did, I put my head out like this and just pushed off of his chest. I'm looking up at him like this, and I just push. And he just scoops me up like this, puts his arms around me like this, and just picks me up. Now, guys, my feet aren't touching the ground, and I'm pushing on him just as hard as I can, and it must have been like a bug, because, he didn't even, and then all of a sudden it just dawns on me, you know what? He'd have killed me if he wanted to. This man's not wanting to hurt me. And I couldn't push anymore. And so I just kind of let my arms fall down and I just laid my head over on his chest. And he's just kind of holding me like this, and I'm just going, wow. I can still remember the way his shirt felt on my face. I mean, what he smelled like. I know there's some therapy coming for me. I know, but. So he bends down and he whispers in my ear. He says, "We've been looking forward to you coming back here all day long." And I went, "Me too." And he just set me down. And I got my book out, and I felt like Jimmy Swaggart. I just like, I was wailing the brothers with that big book, and we were just having the gay. Listen, let me tell you what happened. Besides the fact that it altered my life forever because it showed me what they'd been trying to tell me all along. These men and women at that group had been trying to tell me that if I wanted to do this, if I wanted the special stuff, that I needed to do that I needed to get off my butt and do what the book asked me to do, which was carry a message of recovery. Getting out of self is what I'd never wanted to do. And that was the key. That was the secret handshake to not only staying sober, but staying happy in AA. And I'd made 1,000 excuses why I couldn't do it. I'm too busy, I'm too stupid, I'm too slow, I'm too sweaty. I don't know. I mean, I always seemed to have an excuse why I couldn't do this thing. But let me tell you something else these guys did that came from left field and I never expected it. These guys cured a case of bigotry and a case of weirdness in me that had been there from the time I was a little bitty kid. At some point in time, you ever notice this stuff? Well, guys, we're not born bigots, and we're not born haters, and we're not born selfish. These are traits that we hone to a fine edge based on where we live and what we do, and some of us get pretty screwed up. I mean, some of us are not very lovely at all. And these men, I'm telling you, they just blew me away. The kindness and the consideration that they showed me. I stayed down there for 5 or 6 months, and then there was another place opened up, and I went over there, and I stayed there for 12 or 13 years, doing 2 meetings a week for 13 years. And the last 8 or 9 years I was over there, I was listening to 5 fifth steps a week. Listen, you'll figure out in that step study that Bruce was doing earlier today, and they were talking about getting through the steps in a timely fashion. You want to figure out a way to get through the work in a timely fashion and do a good job, go sponsor a bunch of men. And I promise you, you'll figure a way to do it. You'll get so focused on what you're doing and what's not important to the inventory, it'll freak you out. Okay, I want to tell you one more story, just one more little story, okay, and then we're done. Scouts honor. About this 12-step stuff, there was a kid that I sponsored, a guy named Terry, and I haven't told this story in a long time, but he was in Oak Cliff, they have these roving gangs. It's like, I don't know, I've heard it's like South LA, but I've never been to South LA, so I don't know, but they were up between a building. This kid was sleeping in the back of a pickup truck between the building, and that's where he lived. If it was rainy, he'd crawl in the pickup. If it was not rainy, if it was hot, he would be sleeping in the bed of the pickup between these 2 concrete buildings. Well, one of these gangs came by there one night, saw Terry in the back of this pickup, and pulled him out of the pickup by his ankles. The problem is that Terry was laying on his stomach. And so when they pulled him off the end of that pickup, the first thing that hit the ground was his face. And folks, I'm telling you, it messed him up. His nose was broke, his teeth were all broke out, his jaw was broke and split open, and he looked like something out of a horror movie. So we're doing this deal down in the basement of this big men's unit there, and there's like 80 guys in there, and I see Terry in scrubs walking in. He had just got into treatment the day that I was there, and they had cleaned him up a little bit, but he was a mess. The elements had got him, the bugs had eaten him alive. I've never seen, it's like bug bait. And so he comes walking in the room, and when I saw him, I went, golly, and I'm just looking like this. And guys, for the whole night, my talk was, you existed, you didn't. Because I can't stand to look at him. Now, we get done with the whole thing, and I'm trying to light some guy's cigarette over here like this. I'm just ignoring everybody over here. I'm hoping that he goes away, but he didn't. All of a sudden, I hear something, and I went, excuse me, and I turned around, and Terry's standing right there, and his friend's standing there with him. And I said, I can't understand you. And he goes, tries to say it again, and I said, buddy, I'm so sorry, I can't understand what you're saying. And his friend said, he wants you to be his sponsor. And I went, of course. Thank you, Lord. I'm just like, how do you sponsor a man you can't look at? And so I began this process. I'm going to tell you real quick, over the next 5 or 6 weeks, I'd fallen in love with this kid. He did everything he was supposed to do. Everything he worked on, he just did it. It's a 2-hour bus ride from there to where we are, where our meeting is. And my deal was to him, if you'll get to the meeting, I'll get you back over to Homeward Bound. And so he would ride the bus over there. Listen, I sponsor guys that live 100 yards down from where we have our meetings, and I can't get them to come. And Terry's riding the bus 2 hours every day we have a meeting to be there like this. So one day I get in there like this, and Terry's there when I got there, and I'm looking over there, and there's a white, he says, I want to borrow some money from you. And I said, Terry, I don't loan money to guys. And he said, no, really. I just want to borrow like $15. And I said, okay. I'm thinking he needs it for bus fare. I gave him the $15. Actually, I gave him a 20 because I didn't have the 15. And he took it, and he split. Next Tuesday, he shows up at the meeting, the next scheduled meeting, he shows up, and there's a white bucket on the floor with a squeegee sticking out of the top of it like this. I said, Terry, what is this? And he said, oh, look at this. And he hands me a business card that's got T&L and something or another, and there's a couple of initials on there, window washing service. I said, what is this? And he said, well, rather than taking a chance on missing the meeting, what we're going to do is we're going to take a bus over here to Highland Park, rich area of town. We're going to take a bus over here, and then we're going to wash windows all day. I'm going to bring some guys from treatment in transitional living. They're going to come over here, and they're going to work with me. We're going to wash windows, make some money, and then be over here in time for you to take us back to the meeting, back to Homeward Bound. And I went, no kidding. Oh, rock on. And so over the next couple of months, that's exactly what he would do. Every day he's over there doing it. I pulled onto their job site a couple of times where they were washing windows, and you have never seen anything like this in your whole life. Terry would be up on a ladder with somebody else over right next to him, and he'd go, no, that's wrong. Now listen, do it again. Tell me what alcoholism looks like. And he sounds like just a little version of me, and he's just like, I'm going, oh my gosh, what's going on? It's amazing. Now this guy's not 6 months sober yet. So he comes in one day, and he's got this license, and he said, look what I got. And he hands me this piece of paper, and I said, what is it, Terry? And he said, well, can't you see? And I said, Terry, I don't know what it is. What is it? And he said, it's a CDL, a cross-country driving license, or commercial driving license. He was a truck driver at one point in time, and he says, I finally got my license back, and I'm going to go on the road. And I went, oh, Terry, brother, let's talk about this stuff some. From a selfish standpoint, I've fallen in love with this guy. He's just like Mr. AA 6 months into the gig. And I'm telling you, and he's thinking he's going to go, and I'm just worried about him. He goes on the road, and I say, okay, you got to call me every week. You call me and let me know where you are and what's going on. And I don't hear from him for like 3.5, 4 weeks, almost a month. And I went, oh, no, Terry. I got a call from him at like Friday night at 10 o'clock. Now, if you've been in AA very long, there are no calls Friday night at 10 o'clock that are good. Nobody checks in Friday night at 10 o'clock, okay? I mean, this is a problem. So I pick it up, and he goes, hey, it's Terry. I said, Terry, don't hang up. Now, where are you? What's going on? And I'm just like this. And he said, oh, wait, we'll get to that in a minute. I just want to ask you a couple of questions. I said, okay. He said, I've got a problem here, and I need you to solve it. And I said, rock on. He said, we dropped the load off today, and the people were gone by the time we got in on Friday, so I'm stuck here all weekend. And I said, and that's a problem? And he goes, yeah, it'll be Monday before we can offload. And I said, I'm not getting the problem, buddy. And he said, they don't have any AA here. And I went, Terry, you're going to be okay. What's the problem? And he said, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I was talking to this lady, this waitress in this cafe, and she said they used to have an AA meeting there, but they don't anymore. I just want to know if it's okay with you if I start an AA meeting here. And I went, yeah, sure, that'd be fine. And he goes, okay, thanks, quick, and hangs up. I'm going, no, don't hang up, Terry. God, what is this? My wife is just like, what is it? I said, I don't know, it's just Terry. I don't know what to tell you. About 3 or 4 weeks later, I get another call from Terry on Friday night. Not quite as late, but still Friday night. And he goes, Myers. I said, Terry, if you hang up on me before I say goodbye, I'll kill you. And he goes, No, I won't. He goes, I'm in Maine. I said, super. What's in Maine? Not AA. I go, no kidding. What do you think you got to do about that? And he goes, well, I was thinking I could just start a meeting here just like we did in Tennessee. And I went, no kidding. He goes, yeah, you think we could do that? And I said, yeah. He said, you guys said, you got any books? And he said, no. He said, that's what I was calling. I said, could you send me some books and some chips and some crap? And I went, yeah, I'll do it. And so he said, okay, thanks. And he hangs up, and I'm just going like, oh, man. And then he calls back a little bit later, and he says, hey, I got to give you an address where to send this stuff. And I said, yeah. Details. And so I sent him this stuff, and he starts this meeting up there. And so what he was doing was, on this long haul stuff, he'd drive down here, and then he'd make a road back up there, and he'd sit in those meetings, and he'd talk to those cats, and he'd carry a big book, and then he'd come back around, and he'd do it again, and he'd be, every couple of months, he'd be back up there again, and he'd check in on them and see how they were doing, and it was just like, you understand what I'm saying? I know some of you guys are scratching your head going, I don't get the story. I don't understand what you're talking about. Listen, we have a fellowship today that we've allowed as individuals to make our text subjective. Well, the big book means what I say it means. No, it doesn't. The big book means what they said it means. It gives us a clear-cut set of directions on how we're supposed to work the steps, when we're supposed to work the steps, what's supposed to happen when we do work the steps. All of that stuff is there, you see. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are sitting on fences trying to decide what they want to do. They're sitting in meetings thinking that the meeting is treating the internal condition, which is alcoholism, and it is not. In chapter 7, working with others, the only step that got a whole chapter, we ignore completely in most of our meetings because we don't think it's important, and we don't see the value in doing that. And I'm here to tell you guys, as brothers and sisters that I love more than anything in this whole wide world, everything about your recovery depends on your willingness to crawl off in the trenches and do what we do. Everything is about that. And once you do, everything in your life will change. Everything will shift as a result of you getting out of self and recognizing that you can do this. I don't care who you are. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what your gender is. I don't care whether you have an education or you just came in off the street with no education. I don't care who you are. Page 132 says that we have recovered and been given the power to help others. It didn't come from you anyway, slick. It came from God. Okay? So let's get out there and go do that stuff. Let's get out there and go see who we can help, see what we can do. Let's, for one time, begin the process of taking our fellowship back so that it's not the tired old, threadbare, goofy, lame-o, non-stop discussion meeting. And let's put some teeth back into it. Let's put a topic back into a group that we can all get behind so that the newcomer, when he comes in, can see a clear path from busted up drunk to recovered alcoholic. Cool? I love every one of you, man. Thanks for letting me come.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. If that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.